Hi, this is Dan Sater, and I've been doing a series of videos, blogs about what's in a set of plans, just to kind of explain what we include in our plans, how we prepare them, and how they're used. And last, in our second part, we covered the floor plans and the roof plan. So today I want to try to cover, at least I'll start out with covering the next series of sheets, which in this case, in our Prairie Pine Court, which we're using as an example, would be the exterior elevations. So again, the purpose of this, you're also going to have all four elevations. If it's like a courtyard house that might have a U shape, there might be additional elevations of those views that are kind of hidden from looking at the four sides, but typically there's four elevations: front, rear, side, right, and left. And again, this is example here at the Prairie Pine Court. I mean, we try to give, again, as much detail as we can. We try to call out materials, as generically as much as possible. Sometimes we might call out a brand. It doesn't mean you couldn't substitute something else, but it's just something of reference. So you can say, well, this is an AZEK board, and its dimension is 11 1/8 by 7/8 of an inch thick. So obviously you could find some other material, maybe a hardy board or someone else that might make something similar. But again, we're just trying to give you examples, and if sometimes where we can, we will reference that. So one of the things here in this particular sheet, often people get confused with this, but in the Prairie Pine Court we have this dormer on the front and on the back here. And a lot of people mistake that, think it's a two-story plan, but in reality it's a one-story home, but I wanted to create the illusion of the dormer, this big hip dormer, because I felt it really felt within the Prairie style of the architecture. So it's really an open area when you go up inside, which you'll see in another detail. The building section will illustrate that. But in reality, it's just an open thing, and there's a little detail here, and it's actually shown over in here. It's actually a decorative grill. Now, a lot of people end up putting windows up in there, but my intention was just an open decorative grill, so it would just be open. I mean, with the heavy overhangs and this proximity to the of that soffit, very little. I've never had an instance where I've had driving rain go down inside the porch areas, but I guess it's possible. But I felt that the attractiveness of just being a decorative grill was more beneficial than a window, but many people changed that. But again, the reason why we detail those things out, just to clarify, even an example here where the soffit detail here, as far as we're using these rafter details, so it's kind of spelled out in here. Sometimes, like in a more of like a stucco type house, you might have a lot of decorative bands, and again, we'll have call outs, references, and then we'll have the details usually placed off to the side here on this sheet or on the next sheet that will again show the profiles of the crown molds or soffit bands. Again, help clarify, because a lot of stuff we do for a certain reason, create a certain proportion. Even on this house, I wanted to create a real strong horizontal emphasis, so that's why there's these heavy horizontal band. It's got a three-piece soffit band detail that I felt was really important. It ties in with the tops of the windows, and it just emphasizes, like the Prairie style would emphasize strong horizontal lines, like it was part of the Prairie. So again, that's our elevation sheets. There, again, different references you're going to see. This, again, the fourth elevation was placed over here. But then you'll see is a building section, and sometimes we're going to have, usually one building section through a critical area will be important, be shown. But sometimes there might be, in a bigger house, there might be, 2 or 3 building sections that cover some areas that might, be some gray areas that you can't see from the elevations that need to be detailed out. And in this case, we detailed the front and the back bump outs, so that where those dormers, we cut it right through the dormers, and we were even trying to do some different decorative siding, so there's breaks inside of that to create some horizontal emphasis, and then there's a break with some kind of a split shake type siding up on the upper areas, and it kind of shows a cut through to where the decorative grill is. And again, the grill's shown here, a reference to it, as well as the soffit rafter details that are placed on the dormer. And in this case, it cuts through some of the interior places of the house. Here it cuts through the foyer, the great room. So again, it's just the reason we do this, again, to give an emphasis of certain areas like that, to create need clarity, and so we show that. The next sheet we have In this case, in the Prairie Pine Court, is the interior elevations. That's one of the things we take a lot of pride in as far as design firms. A lot of times they won't go into the, they won't include an interior elevation sheet, but we think it's important. We don't cover every interior elevation. Basically what we're doing mostly is the cabinetry. And again, they're just for references. We're showing some layouts here as a suggestion. Might be a hood detail over the cooktop. A lot of times if there's a built-in detail, like in this case in the study, there's some built-in bookshelves, or the TV entertainment wall in the great room, or it might be a fireplace. Usually fireplaces, any kind of interior architectural elements, if there's an architectural hood over the cooktop. But all your cabinetry, your major cabinetry, is usually shown here. And again, it's just mostly a reference for scale, for height. Certainly you can take any kind of liberties you want with it, but just for a reference to get an idea. The other sheet that we would have in our sets would be the reflected ceiling plan. And again, it shows all the different details in the ceiling. Like here in the veranda, there's a vaulted tongue and groove ceiling with some beams. There's a coffered ceiling in the great room, and that's specified. Little X design coffer in the foyer. Details on the porch, wherever there might be. Master has a tray, so all the ceiling details are shown here. And depending on the complexity of the plan, there might be some details here, like cut cross or details, to give some detail, clarity of what is being done to accomplish the ceiling treatment. Here it's a very simple design. They're just box beams, so they're really there's nothing to show. But some more elaborate plan, more traditional, might have crown molds and cove lighting, things like that would be shown. But that's basically in this series. I'm going to cover in the final one, the last sheet on the one story is the electrical, but I'm going to also talk about, if you had a two-story plan, some other elements that might be included as well. But again, thank you for your time.